Hey my friends, I want to do a video talking about RAV care because there's not a lot of clear information on how to take care of these properly. And I'm going to share some of the tips that I have for keeping them rust free, and then also talk about what to do if they are attacked by rust and what that means for your instrument. So we're going to take a look at what product I use for it and talk a little bit about the varieties of products that are available first. So let's take a look. The current recommendation from RAV is to use Carrauba wax, and this wax is a pretty thick paste that you can buy at auto parts stores or Walmart. Any typical grocery store usually has this product. And Carrauba wax leaves just a thin layer on the outside of the drum, and this wax provides a barrier between humidity and dirt in general and the instrument. The newer RAVs have a rust coating on them. It doesn't make them rust free, but it helps to diminish the risk of them rusting if left to their own devices. What I've found to be the most effective, having tried one of the oils for hand pans, frog lube, and the Carrauba wax on my 5 RAVs, I find that frog lube CLP Extreme is the most effective one. This, unlike the paste, is a very thin liquid. It's very, very thin. It's almost water. And it applies really easily to the RAV. So I'm going to show you guys what I do to clean the RAV. So my technique for cleaning, I'll use a small amount of the Frog Lube Ultra and a circle around the top. And then I use a microfiber cloth. And I'm not sure if the RAVs come with them still now, but you can pick these up at most stores. And all you're doing is wiping this thin layer over your entire instrument. You want to make sure you don't miss the tongues or miss the edges of it. And you could do this a couple times if you're really worried about missing a spot, but just a small amount of this is pretty effective. Once that's done, if you're concerned about the edges, I would recommend once a month, or whenever you feel like doing it really, removing the edges from it and cleaning underneath here, because dirt and grime gets stuck here, and sometimes humidity, if you're out in kind of moist areas, gets trapped under here. And although you can't really see it here, it doesn't really matter. It's good just to wipe this down occasionally, and that can be done just by finding the edge that's open and pulling that off and wiping both the top side and the bottom side. Now, I mentioned that there are actually a few products to use on this. I've tried a lot of them and really only found that Frog Lube provides consistent protection. I have a friend, Felix, who uses the Frog Lube paste. We'll wipe it down, put it in the sun, and then wipe it off, and that works really well for him. So my general recommendation is to try all of the care products if you want to, and find which one works for you and which one works best for your body chemistry. Because you might have a higher acid level, you might have more salt. It all depends on your body chemistry, because you're the one who's going to be touching and adding oils to it. The theory behind these different oils and pastes is that they're providing a protection against oxidization. So humidity, as you know, when it gets to steel, causes it to oxidize and rust. All of them serve the same function. And most of them are coconut oil based, or at least the Frog Lube products are. Ballistol is an English version of Frog Lube. It's used for gun cleaning. That's proven to be effective as well. I want to talk a little bit about the sustain issue in these products. Some people are claiming that there's a diminishment in sustain on the RAV when using Frog Lube, or I haven't heard it with the Carrauba wax, but if people are thinking that the Frog Lube is causing a diminishing in sustain, Carrauba wax, which is literally adding a thick layer to the top of the instrument, would be a huge culprit in sustain reduction. And that's currently what they're saying to use for the RAV. So I can't imagine that Carrauba or Frog Lube has any effect on the sustain. Where this is an instrument based off of weight, so each tongue and each slice in the tongue is specifically determined to be a certain weight, and that causes it to vibrate at a certain frequency. the only way you could change the sustain or the tuning really of this instrument would be to add weight to this. And I don't think that the Frog Lube CLP or even really the Carrauba wax is a high enough molecular weight to change the tuning of these instruments. So I don't really think that you need to worry about diminishing sustain using these. And if you do, it probably wouldn't be a bad thing, because the newer ones have such a long sustain that I'm finding that I'm putting different rims on my newer ones to combat some of the cross-talking or just the general volume of it, because sometimes you don't want it to have as long of a sustain as they have. So those are just my thoughts on the sustain issue. So the other thing I want to talk about is what happens if your RAV does rust. And you know, depending on where you live, depending on your body chemistry, it is inevitable you might encounter some rust. That does not mean your instrument's destroyed. It does not mean that, you know, any amount of it is ruined. It would not be rendered unplayable by even a large amount of rust on it. The rust that's happening is just surface rust. If you had bubbling and peeling, that'd be a very different thing than just some surface blemishing. What I used on the one RAV that I really did have a big problem with was the Magic Polisher, and you can find this on Amazon. I think Pantheon Steel sells it as well. And it's a microfiber cloth impregnated with coconut oil and some other cleaning products, but it has sort of it's almost like a thin sandpaper. It's an abrasive. So when you apply it to the rust areas, it pulls off the outer layer of that rust and also treats it and protects it with the coconut oil. And where things like Frog Lube are based off of coconut oil, you're essentially cleaning it and reapplying Frog Lube to it. I have one instrument, my D major RAV S2, that had a rust problem almost immediately. And they had changed their process of coating them at that point. So the instrument, maybe something went wrong in the process, whatever it was. That was all taken care of with RAV. But my treatment for it was to use this miracle polishing cloth and to, you can kind of see it on the back, the lighter spots, to rub the areas that were affected with the miracle polishing cloth, wipe it off, and it took probably one full cloth to clean the whole thing. And since then I haven't had a problem with rust. So really it's just stopping the current oxidization, and then you're all set. And as long as you're applying regular Frog Lube, you shouldn't really have much of a problem. With the RAVs too, I think they're a little bit less of a worry with rust as well. I've seen some that are covered in rust, and no matter how much rust your RAV has, I mean generally speaking, you are not going to ruin the tone of your instrument or the tuning. It's just an aesthetic issue, and I really want to make that clear for people, because I was even paranoid about it when I first received one, that it was ruined because it had some rust on it. That's not the case. It's an aesthetic issue. It's unfortunate, but it's aesthetic. So my tips again are to regularly use Frog Lube Extreme, or whatever Frog Lube product you want. Try the other ones, see if they're effective. They weren't effective for me, but try them out. If you do have some rust currently, I recommend using the Miracle Polishing Cloth. You can find it on Amazon, and again, Pantheon Steel sells it in their shop. And again, if you do have rust, do not worry, your instrument's not ruined. It might not be aesthetically perfect anymore, but, you know, over time, all instruments are weathered. So it's not the end of the world. Unfortunate, but not the end of the world. I hope that this was useful for you and giving you a little more insight on how to clean these instruments and what products I've found useful. Try them out for yourself, find what works for you. And if you have any tips or cleaning regimens that you do yourself, I'd love to hear them below, and maybe other people can see them, and we can have a discussion about what's effective for you. So stay well, and I'll talk to you soon.